So this is a very interesting thing. Now, some of you are confused. Aren't you confused? Because didn't Ellen White say that we have to learn how to bake bread, right? And so you would wonder, why is it that wheat and gluten is getting such a bad rap? And for me as a Korean, you know, one of the things that we did a lot of was gluten patties, you know? And so it really goes against our almost like our Korean heritage to say that there's something that might be wrong with gluten. And I think that goes for many of our cultures. And so I remember hearing about this for the very first time and feeling so confused. But you know, sometime around the 1950s, 60s, there was a lot of research being done to try to help with the problem of world hunger. And one of the plants that they studied was the wheat plant, and they wanted to produce a plant that could produce much more wheat. And this plant apparently produced about 10 times as much wheat as the original plant did, but in the meantime, it changed the structure of the food. And this may be one of the reasons for why this is happening. The other thing, though, may also be that since the 1990s when it became much more prevalent, was the spraying of glyphosate, the active ingredient of Roundup. How many of you are familiar with glyphosate and Roundup? Okay, so glyphosate or Roundup is something that is being used to kill weeds. How many of you even remember what it was like to kill a weed? Most of us are spraying them, right? I hope that we will not continue with that practice. If you're using glyphosate or Roundup, please look into other ways. You know, I love getting outside and weeding. Do you know why I love weeding? Because that's one of the best ways to interact with soil. And when you interact with soil, you are exposing yourself to bacteria. And one of these bacteria is called Mycobacterium vaccae. It is a bacteria that helps you get smarter. It actually will decrease anxiety, it will decrease depression, it will help with memory. And so if you go outside and you're interacting with the soil, you're going to improve your microbiome. Some of you are doing all kinds of probiotics and this kind of thing, but you're not interacting with your environment. And instead, you're spraying it dead. So I would not do this don't do this on public property. Like if you go to a school or a library, they spray all that stuff with glyphosate. Do it only where you know it's safe, that they haven't been spraying, that there are no chemicals, that you can interact with the soil carefully. Amen? Now the thing about glyphosate is that it has been patented in 3 ways. Now we know it's a very powerful weed killer, but the other kind of patent that it has on it is that it will chelate minerals. Do you know what it means to chelate minerals? It means that it will bind and inactivate them. So have you ever used like a water distiller? You will do the water distiller and then all the minerals cake up on the sides of the canister, right? And for you to be able to clean that canister off, you have to put in something that is going to bind and inactivate those minerals. That is what glyphosate's other patent is for. It's a powerful industrial pipe cleaner. This is what we're putting in our food. Now, the other patent for glyphosate is that it is an antibiotic. Now, when you're eating food, you may not realize this, but you are getting hit with all of that glyphosate yourself. And so that glyphosate is binding your magnesium and calcium. It is changing your microbiome. It is having a very definite health effect. And it's also been classified as a carcinogen. Now, right now in conventional medicine, if you go to a conventional medicine person, they're not really that clued in on the subject of leaky gut. Typically what they will do for autoimmune disease is that they will try to help with inflammation by putting you on a steroid or something to change your immune system. If you go to somebody who believes more in alternative healthcare practices, does functional medicine and this kind of thing, they will believe in this whole idea of leaky gut and that kind of thing. But what they'll tell you is that for you to get better, you have to eat according to your evolution. And they will want you to go on a paleo diet, eat bone broth, and this type of thing. This will help a large number of people. One reason that this will help a large number of people is because most people are not on any kind of healthy diet. I have visited with people, I visited with a mother whose daughter had terrible eczema growing up, and her children don't like to eat, fruits or vegetables. They like pasta and this kind of thing. And they love ice cream, this type of thing. That's all they eat. I don't even know how people survive on this earth, but apparently they've been making it. They've been making it. But there is coming a time where we will have exposure to more and more terrible diseases. And I really believe God's people have to know how to eat for us to be able to survive this. Now, this is why, of course, we wrote the cookbook and did everything, because we believe that at this time, where so many millions of people are developing autoimmune disease, and all that they are being told is that if you want to get better, you have to deny that there is a creator and eat according to a paleo philosophy, we believe that this is a place for the three angels' message to be made known to this population. And so that is why we wrote that cookbook. I want to share with you a story. This is a lady who came to Mercy's Lifestyle Center 3 years ago. And at that time, she was 54 years old. She had been diagnosed with diabetes type 1 in 1981. That means that autoantibodies were destroying her pancreas. She was also diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease in 2012. And prior to coming to Years Restored, she was on 30 to 35 units of insulin. She weighed about 150 pounds almost. A lot of that was water weight. She had a lot of swelling and edema. She had a lot of weakness and fatigue. She was so fatigued, she spent all her time in bed. This lady has over 70 acres in Pennsylvania. She has horses, and she was unable to do anything except for lay in bed. She was so afraid of doing anything. She thought to fly across the states to come to California. She was afraid to do that. And she had terrible brain fog. Some people have such terrible brain fog, they can't answer your questions. They can't go to work anymore. And she had depression. She had these bumps on the backs of her arms, thighs, and knees. How many of you have funny bumps on your skin? And you're like, what is this all about? Your skin is one of your biggest detox organs. She had abdominal bloating, 3 to 4 plus joint pain, poor distance vision, and her TPO, which is her thyroid peroxidase autoantibody, so this is a type of autoantibody against thyroid. It was 304, which is extremely high. Her hemoglobin A1C should be around 5. Look at what it was, almost 3 times that amount. It was 14.7. That is extremely high. That means her blood sugar is not being controlled well at all. So prior to coming, she was eating some salad and some meat. And her lifestyle, as I said, mostly in bed. Now, I went to Years Restored at the time that she was there. I was there on day 5 of her time there. And I didn't know any of this when I met her. She had such a strong family history. Her father had died from hyperthyroidism, her mother from pancreatic cancer. She had 2 children with Hashimoto's as well. When I went to Years Restored, I went on day 5. She had gone through 5 days where they didn't eat food necessarily, but they were drinking detox teas. They were drinking poultice drinks. You know what poultice drinks are? Have you ever made a poultice for your skin? with charcoal or clay or this kind of thing. So they would make a drink with charcoal, clay, diatomaceous earth, and this kind of thing. And they would be drinking these kinds of drinks. They would be drinking drinks to help flush the liver, to get rid of parasites. 5 days of doing this and doing infrared sauna and this type of thing. When I saw her, we all went on a walk together. And she walked with us all the way out to the gate, which probably was like 1.5 miles or so. And she kept remarking, oh, this is amazing. Like, I haven't walked out this far before. And I didn't know her story. I thought that it was just, normal. I thought she was just one of us. And I realized, no, this woman has not been walking for years. Isn't that amazing? So what were some of the interventions that took place? Well, what we do when we do the autoimmune plant-based protocol, we do charcoal every evening, we do aloe before the meals and at bedtime, we do turmeric powder, we do a large amount of greens every day. They do juicing as well as salads and this kind of thing. We do onion and garlic broth for the very sick. Well, now we're doing this pretty much across the board for everyone. We do 2 cloves of garlic at the meals. We also do lemon juice at the meals. And we're juicing 30 minutes before our meals for very debilitated people. The diet that we recommend is to be organic, plant-based, and high nutrient. We try to eat 70% raw, 30% cooked. We soak and sprout our seeds, and we use pseudograins instead of grains. We use seeds like pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds instead of nuts while people are trying to heal. We use a lot of legumes. And we are soaking and sprouting everything to decrease inflammation and to increase nutrient availability. Tomorrow I will explain more about that in our class. We also eat fruits at one meal and leafy greens at another. Why would we do that? They digest at different rates, and so it's going to improve the ability of your body to digest things. Last year, I was contacted by someone who worked at a California prison. He told me that there was a Seventh-day Adventist man who was in prison. He had converted to the Seventh-day Adventist faith. And this man, he was about to be let out on probation. But he had a visit with his wife. And after the visit with his wife, they checked him for alcohol. And they found that his alcohol levels were too high. And so he asked me to research this and to write to the prison because he knew that this prisoner would not be drinking alcohol. So did you know that there is a condition where you can have the improper bacteria in here, and that when you digest food, especially if you're eating foods that are sugary, that it can cause your blood alcohol levels to go up? Yeah, did you know that when you ferment foods that you produce alcohol? If you look at kombucha, for instance, it'll tell you that it has like a 3.5% alcohol content. That's why we don't really want to ferment our foods for our microbiome. We want to get our microbiome improved from the environment and this kind of thing, and we don't want to be doing so much. This fermentation, like making kimchi and sauerkraut and this kind of thing, it will produce some alcohol. And it will produce some things that are harmful for the gut. And so if you were a sailor that was on a ship that would not be accessing any fresh fruits or vegetables for a year, then maybe fermented sauerkraut and this kind of thing would be something that would be reasonable. But for those of us who live here and are able to get our food, maybe able to get outside into an orchard, and how many of you are fruit picking right now and going U-pick and all of this kind of stuff? This is your homework. If you want to have good health, you want to go outside and access well-grown local foods from the garden and from the orchard. That's how you're going to improve your microbiome. So we eat fruits at one meal, leafy greens at another, because we don't want alcohol formation. What are other ways that alcohol will form in the gut? Eating too much, too frequently. So if you eat between meals, did you know the spirit of prophecy? It says that, for better health, it's better to eat fruits at one meal and vegetables at another. So spirit of prophecy says that, but she says, never should a morsel of food pass between your lips between meals. Yes, and so it's about 5 hours that you want to wait between meals. How many of you are waiting 5 hours between meals? Yes, this will be very, very helpful for you. Hydrate well throughout the day with pure water, but avoid drinking water with your meals because you don't want to dilute the stomach acid, and you want to rest your gut between meals. This subject of rest comes up a lot, doesn't it? So you want to rest between your meals, and you want to rest especially at night. How many of you are eating your biggest meal in the evening, and then you go to sleep? See, this is what the world will do. The world will say, there's this thing called intermittent fasting and eating 2 meals within an 8-hour window, and then you wait 16 hours, and that gives your body rest. And so people in the world will say, okay, well, I'm going to wake up, I'm not going to eat breakfast, then I'll eat lunch, and then I'll eat my dinner meal, and then I'll go to sleep. You will get some health benefit this way, but you will not get as good a benefit as if you do it God's way. Amen? So what happens when you eat your biggest meal at night before you go to sleep? Let me tell you what happens. So at night is the time where your body does all its work. Like if you work at a park, say, and all these people come, hundreds, thousands of people come during the day, and they're making a big mess. At night is the time where a lot of employees go through and they clean up everything, right? Now, what happens if you're using your gut, though, and it's working at night, and it's pulling all these immune cells to help it? Well, then the stomach doesn't have time to rest, and your immune cells don't have the proper energy that they need to go and do what they need to do. It's kind of like if I were to go and visit one of you at your house, and then you say, Joyce, here's your bedroom. I say, okay, thank you, and I go to sleep, and then you wake me up at 10 o'clock, and you say, Joyce, can you come and help me clean the kitchen? And I say, oh, okay. But if you did this to me night after night after night after night, do you think our friendship would be very good? See, this shows you the beauty of God's creation, doesn't it? How many of you have abused your body year after year after year, and yet your body says, I will keep on forgiving, and I will keep on trying? This is a beautiful story of forgiveness, isn't it? If you go on YouTube and you look up white blood cell chasing bacteria, it's a YouTube video of this white blood cell and all of these red blood cells, and it's chasing a bacteria around. It looks like this amazing game show type of thing, right? This like internet game, right? Where you're trying to kill something, but it's happening in your body. And you realize, who's the person that has the most say in who's going to win? It's you. So whenever I get sick, or whenever I've done something against, and I've sinned against my body, I say, body, please forgive me. And whenever my body is going crazy and I feel scared, how many of you have had stuff happen in your body and you're scared because things are going crazy? You say, body, by God's grace, I'm going to help you all get through this. By God's grace, we're going to get through this. I will be a good captain of this ship. Amen? Yes, by God's grace, we're all going to be captains of our ship. So the principles are eat to heal the gut, avoid toxins, especially glyphosate, avoid genetically modified foods. Why are modified foods not so good? One reason is that when they genetically modify the genes, when they modify these genes, it's a very violent and harmful way of doing things. The other thing is that it has harmful health effects that we might not be aware of because this is very new technology. And number 3 is this. When you are eating a GMO food, it has been engineered so that it can tolerate glyphosate. So you know they're spraying lots of glyphosate on it. And while all the weeds around that plant will die, that plant will imbibe the glyphosate and pass it on to you. So this is not what we want. We want to avoid these things, avoid additives and preservatives, and be aware of food sensitivities, testing, and this kind of thing. We also want to avoid hyperglycemia and hypoglycemia by having good food combinations. That's why in our cookbook we have what a good breakfast and lunch looks like for 7 days. We make the dinner meal very light, onion broth or fast, or if you are somebody who does a lot of heavy labor or needs to eat, maybe you're losing weight and this type of thing, you can eat some fruit and some of the breads. We have bread recipes that we can show you how to make in the cookbook as well as in the course and that kind of thing. Very easy bread recipes. We chew small amounts of food slowly and thoroughly. We eat in a pleasant atmosphere. This will very much affect your digestion. We exercise before meals, do a digestive walk slowly after your meals. We avoid grains and nuts within the first few months while we're trying to heal, just because they are a little bit more difficult to digest. We use pseudograins instead of grains, pumpkin and sunflower seeds instead of nuts, and flax seeds and chia seeds to further decrease inflammation. So these are some of the basic things. This is in the cookbook as well. So if you want to look at it in the cookbook, you're welcome to. I am going to show you some pictures of foods that are high risk. And one of the reasons that they might be high risk are that, number 1, they have GMOs. For instance, corn, soy are over 90-some% genetically modified. And the way that I heard about this was actually through the Adventist Agricultural Association, where these farmers were talking about the risk of cross-pollination, because you can grow GMO corn right next to normal corn, and you can have this issue with cross-pollination. A lot of people are having sensitivities and this kind of thing, and so we've just found it easier. We deal with so many people who are really, really sick, wanting to get their life back, and so we just don't risk it, and we do it this way. Also, these foods can be quite addictive. Anything that is processed like this, they have kind of engineered it so that you will want more and more and more. Now, I put these pictures up here because these are foods that a lot of us love to eat. We will have our healthy food, and we'll have haystacks. Haystacks is a pretty healthy food if you look at it, on average. It has lettuce and tomatoes and all kinds of vegetables and beans and this kind of thing. But at the bottom, you're going to have, a lot of times, corn chips. And a lot of times when you come to church potlucks, you don't know, have my friends at church, do they care about whether something is genetically modified or not? And so many of us, we eat in faith. I have faith that I can eat pretty healthy all through the week, and then maybe one day a week when I come to church, I'll have a minor setback. That's ironic, isn't it? So that is why when we go to churches, we teach people, we take our food where we go. We want to know that our food is safe, that we're not going to have a setback. For some of you, if you eat some of these foods, it can set you back for weeks. I know of a lady, she was put on ciprofloxacin over 20 times for urinary tract infections, and she developed Lyme disease, she developed MS, and I asked her, what was your diet like before? She was trying to be healthy. She said, well, maybe once a month I would eat pizza. Maybe, but it was once a month that she was eating pizza, once a month that maybe she would do ice cream, once a month that she would maybe be doing something else, right? How many of you are the same kind of way? Well, you know, on average, my diet's pretty good. Every once in a while, I'll have a dessert. I have dealt with patients, so like I would go through and do a 24-hour food journal with them. What'd you eat for breakfast today? What'd you eat for dinner last night? What'd you eat for lunch? And they'll say, well, last night we went to Panda Inn Express and had some Chinese food. That's very unusual. That doesn't happen very often. I will tell you something, if you told me it happened last night, I'm pretty sure it's happening pretty often. These are foods that you would think of as being pretty healthy. Cheerios. I love Cheerios because I thought these are oats. And how can that be bad? Well, if they spray glyphosate all over them, then yes. And they have found that a lot of our foods that are healthy breakfast foods have high residues of glyphosate in them. And so we want to be sticking with foods that have been organically grown. You can find places that will distribute food that has not had glyphosate sprayed on them. I go through Azure Standard. Azure Standard will distribute all over the United States, and they are very intentional about not having foods that are sprayed with glyphosate and having GMOs and this type of thing. You can, you know, if you go to the store and get buckwheat, it's like almost $4, maybe more now here in California, I don't know, $4 a pound. I can get it for less than $2 a pound if I buy a large bag from Azure Standard. So some people think that it's expensive to eat this way. No, you just find a way to make it work for you. And a lot of times it's cheaper. We've talked to people in the Philippines and Africa who are implementing eating this way, and they say we're able to make it work because we're eating foods that are less expensive than we used to. Our friend who came through Years Restored, she got better every day. Her blood glucose dropped so much that she would have hypoglycemia in the middle of the night. Mercy would have to go and feed her applesauce and that kind of thing. But you can see that her weight dropped to 128 from 148. Her ankle swelling was gone. Her weakness was gone. Her brain fog was gone. The depression was gone. The bumps on the skin of the back of her upper arms all gone. Abdominal bloating gone. Joint pain gone. Long distance vision significantly improved. Her TPO dropped from 300 and something down to 180, and she was able to take vacations. She was able to start riding her horses again. She got her life back. There is food that we can eat that will bring healing. Amen? How many of you are determined today, Jesus, help me to find this way. Help me to love this way. Help me to be somebody who will love your way more than anything in my own life. Amen.